Here is what everyone is missing about the DOJ Epstein report. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Filibusted Daily Live, and I am coming at you with all kinds of technical difficulties. I'm a little bit later than I wanted to be because, well, my camera decided to stop working. So if anything's awkward, you'll just have to forgive me in advance for that. So I had to move on to a different camera, my regular laptop camera. But you know what? We're going to make it through this, okay? This is a big topic, and I have a feeling some what's the word I'm looking for? Some battles are going on here that I can't fully understand or see because of what we're about to cover. All right, so I'm going to be a little bit more relaxed about this because today we're talking about Epstein. As you guys may have seen, it's been trending recently. Chinese cameras. Thank you for that laugh. Yes, these are Chinese cameras for sure. They're everywhere. You can't get away from them. All right. So the big question on everybody's mind is, what about the list? Okay. I wrote up a whole thing here on like an introduction for this topic. It might be a little bit longer today than I intend, but I think it's still going to be good and it's going to be full of information that you guys want. And hopefully Troy is going to join me in a few minutes, so that'll be good. And if that's the case, then we're going to have to do some rearranging of whatever I've got going on here because I don't know exactly how I got this posted, the articles here, but they're there somehow. So it might be a little weird for a second, so bear with us. All right, I'm going to kind of just read off of this little introduction for you guys and respond to Troy. Okay. I have a list of my own, but it's not names. It's a bunch of stuff that I think a lot of people are missing with this whole conversation. Okay, so a little bit of backstory on me, just real quick. Since 2016, I have been embedded in this kind of research, and back then it was called conspiracy theory. Nowadays, it's starting to just come out as fact. But anyway, I didn't start digging into the really dark world that this topic is related to until about 2016, though I had been into the conspiracy theory points before then. But there came a point in my research where it got a little bit too much, and I uncovered a little bit too much. I'm not saying that to gloat, but just to provide a little bit of a qualification for my perspective on this subject specifically, because I have actually been in this realm for a very long time, though I did take a very long break in between because it's a crazy subject and it gets too much. So there's a lot of confusion happening. And because Epstein has gotten the light shown on it again, I wanted to kind of shed a little bit of light from a different angle on it, because it's not that people are wrong. It's just that there's some things that are missing and some parts of this that aren't being talked about that I think need to be talked about. So my hope is that this is encouraging to everyone, and also eventually that justice can be served eventually at some point. But I'm going to say some things that are going to sound controversial at first, but hopefully you tune in long enough to hear my explanation of exactly why I think this is the way it is. And I'm on the wrong tab. I wanted to start with this tab. Let's start with this tab. Of course, everybody has heard, well, most people have heard by now that there is a memo from the DOJ and the FBI claiming that there is no list and that he did commit suicide. We're going to get into exactly why, number one, that's accurate, believe it or not. And number two, why people's perspective on exactly what it is a little bit skewed. But then number three, why the accuracy of this is important. And there's an angle of this that people are missing. Okay. But first, I want to talk about the people's reaction to this. We've got a few famous people, or famous influencers, I should say, who are pretty upset about this. Tucker Carlson has come out with his theories, and I wanted to give a little breakdown of two prominent influencers right now who are throwing out some ideas on this and hopefully answer some questions that they have kind of posed in a way, okay? Tucker Carlson's theories are this. He gave two theories in this interview. The DOJ under Bondi is covering up crimes is the overarching theme of what he was saying. It's covering it up one way or another. And he suggests two reasons for this. Number one, his suggestion is that Trump is involved and implicated in the trafficking. Carlson does not believe this, actually. He immediately said, this is a theory, but I don't think it's true, but it's a theory. Okay. He said that Trump doesn't strike him as the kind of guy who's into creepy stuff. I'm avoiding particular words too on this channel. We're a little bit newer of a channel, so the likelihood that we get hit with censorship is more. So we have a tendency to avoid particular words. So he said more than that, but I'm giving you the abbreviated version minus particular words that would get us flagged. So he points out that if Trump were truly implicated, the Biden administration would have definitely exposed that for political reasons. That's a really logical conclusion. I would tend to agree with that. The second theory that he gives is that intel services are at the center of the story and they are being protected. The question is, by who, obviously? He's suggesting that this is the CIA and the Mossad, Israeli intelligence agencies. They're implicated and they're being protected. But he kind of suggests that it's the FBI protecting them. But he doesn't say that, but that's the angle that he's getting at in this conversation. He suggested that the agencies sometimes plant child images, once again, another word I'm replacing a different word with, into people's computers, and said that's why he doesn't have a computer. I believe my internet keep going like it's not, and hopefully Troy will join us and take over if I completely drop out. Okay. No direct claim, but a lot of suggestion that people within the agencies have done relevant illegal activities. So that's Tucker Carlson's idea of it. I wanted to kind of talk about, let me get my brain on right here. He was saying that they're being, yeah, you're acting up, Doug, not you, but your internet. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I am acting up today, man. I've been so thrown off. Thanks for the confirmation, though. Okay, so he suggested that the CIA and the Mossad are, I think I'm pronouncing that word wrong, they're being protected. He doesn't say by who, but my speculation is that they're actually just protecting themselves. But we'll get into a little bit more of that later. All right, so the next influencer up on the list is Benny Johnson. He has been, I think he went live, like Troy said, he's gone live like 3 times recently over this specific subject, and he is very upset, and rightly so. I would agree with him on that part of it about this whole thing. I broke down a list of some of his concerns that I have witnessed, and you guys can read what he's had to say here. It's pretty informative too, but he wants to know, how did Epstein get to be a billionaire? So no one knows how Epstein is a billionaire. And then he was saying, like, you can find out, like everybody else, how they became billionaires, right? But why not Epstein? He suggested Trump was trying to defend Pam Bondi in the lashing out yesterday. So here's one of the things that was really unfortunate that I have to warn you guys. I did not get to prepare this as well as I wanted to. One of the things I wanted to do was go over the reporter's question that happened yesterday to Trump and was it Pam Bondi? I think so. Obviously, I didn't get to actually get to this part yet. There was a particular way that they responded that I wanted to break down because it's not quite as dramatic as what everybody's saying. And I think that there's a strategy to it, but I didn't get to break that down. So I don't want to say too much about that yet because I don't want to mislead anybody. But anyway, just reminded me because I'm seeing that here. Okay, so he wonders if the administration is walking into a setup. He fully believes that Trump is in the right on this, and that Trump is doing the best that he can with limited intel. Or hey, there he is.
Hey, what's up, Doug?
Oh man, all the problems happening.
Sorry, I'm super late. I noticed you're having internet trouble.
Yeah, internet trouble, camera trouble, and then
can you send me your yeah, we're live in front of the world right now, so that's awesome. What do we got? 50,000 people watching? No, I'm kidding. 50. Okay, can you send me your document just in case you drop off so that I can keep going?
I'll try to do that.
I'll try to fake my way through it if you drop off.
Good luck with that.
But what are we on right now? Yeah, I know. Thanks. What are we on right now?
Talking about Benny Johnson's reaction to everything right now and how he doesn't believe that Trump is necessarily like he thinks Trump is doing well, but he's been put in a bad position. Like he's still on Trump's side. He still thinks that Trump is doing everything he could be doing, but that he's being put into a corner, basically.
I see.
which I know you've been watching some Benny Johnson stuff recently, right, on this topic, or you at least
not a whole lot. I've just seen it pop up, here and there. So, but yeah, I've not really been watching his stuff too much.
Gotcha. All right, sending the link.
Thank you. Your internet sounds good to me right now, though.
Good. Normally I plug it in directly, but the cord was not long enough to get to my computer, so I had to go with camera over internet.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. So I'm just gonna keep going down this list. Feel free to jump in with your thoughts at any time. So, okay. Benny Johnson is wondering if Epstein actually really was an Intel insider, which that's been a big conspiracy theory. Like, is he an insider or is he just a pervert? That's like, take your pick on what angle you want there. Nothing's really been proven one way or the other than obviously the pervert part's pretty well proven at this point. He says the FBI was protecting their asset, which is, he's referring to Epstein. Epstein was the asset. And so he thinks that this is kind of a cover up in order to make sure that the FBI's asset did not get exposed in whatever ways they didn't want him to be exposed, that Epstein was working for the intelligence agencies. And he was mentioning that Epstein was pictured with everyone in the late 90s. It's not just Trump, because he was pointing out that the legacy media is all about like how Trump is buddies with Epstein. And he was like, listen, Epstein was trying to be buddies with everyone, which I agree with. He really was.
Right.
And then he goes on a little rant on to how Trump is the reason Epstein even got arrested and why any of this even happened. And he made some good points about that. Trump was one of the first people to bring up the whole trafficking issue. He even used it to attack other politicians. He called out Bill Clinton for his problems with Epstein back in 2008. And then there are many more examples of Trump calling out Epstein even before he ran for president officially in 2016. This was like,
wow. So Trump called Epstein out before he ran for president?
Yeah. And this is what Benny Johnson covered. So I want to give credit where credit's due. He did a recent live and he pulled up all kinds of stuff. I just gave like the quick overview of Benny Johnson's view on this, but he did cover all of this. And there were some interviews and stuff that I remember seeing before, but I guess I didn't realize it was like 2006, 2008 that Trump was saying some of these things where he was incriminating Prince Andrew. Like he calls out Prince Andrew and who else? Bill Clinton for sure.
Wow. So, I mean, it makes sense that he was, if he knew these things were happening, that either he had conversations with people, he had uncovered some things, or that he was approached by Epstein or somebody like him, and was like shocked, out of his, just like,
yeah,
and was like, couldn't believe what he was hearing, that type of thing. Like, it makes sense that, that he would be talking about those things. That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
So he got upset in the video that I watched. Benny Johnson was upset and he couldn't figure out why disclosure wasn't happening. And his he has a little bit of an emotional reaction, which is understandable. But within that, I think that I'm just kind of using him as the example of people who are reacting a little bit too emotionally to this, and they're not stepping back and thinking logically about what's actually happening and what could be potentially happening in the future of this whole story. He had interviewed Kash Patel before, and Kash had promised that the Epstein list would be simple to retrieve by threatening politicians' money, basically. And that was the clip that he gave, which I thought a little bit of commentary on that. When I watched that clip of Benny Johnson interviewing Kash Patel, and Kash Patel said, "Oh, it's simple. You just, take the money from them." I just thought that is such a thin argument for how to get a list from somebody.
Yeah, that is a thin argument.
It didn't even make sense to me.
Yeah. I think, though, I do want to say, like, I definitely sympathize with those that are feeling very emotional about it. Because, I mean, I've been, like, just in my, I'm not, like, super involved. I don't know everything about it. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't believe that they're not releasing it. I'm like, I just don't understand it. It's like at this point, it should be pretty easy to just let people know what the truth is, and yeah. So,
well,
but I know you have some interesting theories as to why, so what's really going on. So that's what I want to hear.
Well, I hope I have more than just theories. I hope I have some answers, and what I hope to provide is less evidence-based, quote unquote, and just more logic-based. And I hope that people can understand that. But there's another twist with this too. I've got the one that I've saved for the end of this. a big twist that not as many people are talking about with the memo in general and this the one that just leaked. So definitely stay tuned for that, because I came across that and I was like, this is weird. Let's see. I'm going to skip a couple points here because I don't think they're as relevant. I just wrote down everything I possibly could. I've been going crazy all morning trying to get this out. So Johnson's big question is, why did they release the memo the way that they did? After all the Trump wins recently, the memo was released specifically to left-wing media, Axios. And the thing that boggled his mind was that it was basically, trust us, bro. We looked into it, which is what you see in this X post here. Nothing to see here. So here's my potential answer as to why these things have come down, not the way they've come down. The list, this big Epstein list of Epstein's clients, doesn't exist. Not the way that we think it does, okay? You have to think of this in a different light. There is no comprehensive list of Epstein's clients and people logged in at this time to do this certain activity and then logged out. That I don't believe exists. Obviously, I wasn't there, so I'm not 100% sure of that. But from what I have gathered in all of the years of research that I've done, that's not a thing. And so that's why there's no list getting released. But the other part of this is that people are wanting the evidences, right? So we're going to talk more about that. But here's an angle that you have to think about. A list is not hard evidence of wrongdoing. It doesn't work. It wouldn't hold up in a court of law. So we're asking the wrong question. It's not who's on the list. It's who irrefutably committed crimes against children. That's what we want to know. That's the end result, right? That's the point of the list.
Right. So, and where's the evidence pointing to that?
And where's the evidence? You can think of the list. So people oftentimes refer to Epstein's little black book because he's got names and stuff in there. But that's going to be no better than, think about the people in your phone contacts list. Like you might have people's addresses and numbers and all that in your phone that you haven't contacted in years. So it doesn't. That's not
just because somebody's selling drugs doesn't mean that every contact in his phone is he's selling drugs too.
It was his job, quote unquote, to get those contacts. Just because he has them doesn't mean they did something. Exactly. So that's how that list will be thrown out in court real quick. And it reminded me of the O.J. Simpson, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Like it was clearly his glove, but because of other things against it, like because the glove didn't fit him in that moment, the whole case was thrown out. And so we have to look at this through the lens of the way that this whole case is being handled is it has to be very, very specific. The case has not been dropped, the case itself. There's human trafficking things that are still in play, but Epstein specifically, from the message of the memo is we're moving on from Epstein, but there's more. And if we focus on Epstein and this supposed list that doesn't really exist, we're going to lose the whole case. And we need to move on from that, not because we need to forget about the events that happened, but because we need to focus on the clients and figure out where they're at, how we can prove that they did what they did, and then move on. So that gets more complicated than just getting a list and putting everybody in jail on the list.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, and have you already talked about whether Epstein's alive or not?
No, no.
Because I mean that side plays into it. Because if you have Epstein able to testify and say these are all the people, that's different than just a list. If he's able to give more information or whoever, if somebody's able to testify and give more information, that's different than just So that you're right. A black book with a list of names doesn't really prove anything. It just gives you a place to look. So
that's a good hint, but it's not conclusive. And no, so I didn't point that out. So there is a theory, if anybody's interested, that the man known as Epstein, who was wheeled out of the prison cell after having unalived himself, is not actually Epstein. And I'll let you guys go and figure out whether or not you believe that and do your own research on that. That's a completely different story. It's not something that we can rely on for real.
Yeah, and I'll say from the amount of evidence, I have not done as much digging as you, Doug. So from the amount of evidence I've seen and what I've read, I'm still on the side of I think it really was Epstein. So obviously you and I disagree on that point, but I think either way, it's like your main point, this main point that you're making is still applies, either way, whether that was him or not. And there's obviously reasons for that not being him potentially. So yeah, anyways, it's an interesting rabbit hole. That's definitely interesting.
And to clarify, I'm not fully on board with that theory. Because there's so much evidence or reasoning on both sides of that conversation that you can go one way or the other and have plenty of backing. And that's what makes this so hard to pin down, because this is massive. This whole story is just, the magnitude and importance is crazy. And we have to be very specific if we want to get anything done in the court of law,
Mm-hmm.
So my question for everybody is, what is better than a list? What's better than a list is testimony. That's where I think this is heading eventually. Testimony will rely on evidence, but the testimony of people involved is the thing that we need. And we need a person whose testimony is valid, who we can count on with evidence behind that to do something about this and actually put criminals behind bars.
Yeah, that's why what's her name is gone.
Maxwell?
No, whatever the I don't know her name, but one of the victims,
Oh,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's why it's a lot of them are scared, because they know that their testimony is the most powerful part of this whole thing. So if you think about it, the Ghislaine, I cannot ever remember how to pronounce her first name, Maxwell, the person connected to Epstein, for those who don't know, she was also involved in all of this trafficking and such. She was actually convicted. And the thing that got her conviction, from what I can tell and in my belief and reading all of the documents, was testimony. Virginia Giuffre, I think is her name. She had a very damning testimony against her, and there was no way out of it. It was backed by evidence. That's how we get the testimony for the rest of, or the locking away for the rest of these people. Okay. So Johnson said this really interesting thing, though, that I wanted to point out. I love this line. And my whole point behind this story is there's an angle to this thing that people are missing. He says, the more they say don't ask questions, the more people are going to ask questions. The more our worst suspicions are confirmed. And when he said that, I was like, man, you hit the nail on the head right there. That's exactly what this is all about. This is about optics, and this is about getting people to ask questions. That's why this memo was dropped, in my opinion. And people are kind of skimming past that, and they're upset about what the memo said, rather than the point of, now we're asking questions, and this is planned. This was strategic. That was supposed to happen this way. People are supposed to be asking questions, and this is a good thing that we're asking questions now. So no one is wrong, but they're missing the point of this. This is what happens when emotions kind of overrun reasoning. And it's not really an indictment on anyone. It's just that my hope is to shine a light on the dark corners that people haven't really been able to see. And I have a picture pulled up. I think I still have it pulled up. Is it this one? Yeah. This is exactly what's happening right now. There's a reality here, and people are seeing it from different angles. This maybe isn't the best representation of what I'm getting at, but there's more to the story, and neither one of these sides are wrong. It's just one of them is not being looked at. So,
it's like the old fable of the three blind men trying to describe an elephant.
Oh yeah.
Where they all describe it differently, but one has like felt the tusk, one has felt the nose, and one has felt like an ear, and it's like, they think it's a different thing, than it is, but they don't understand the full picture.
And that's what we're all trying to do, is we all have one little piece of it. And what we need to do is come together with all of our information and paint this picture the right way. And instead of relying on legacy media outlet to do that for us, apparently we have to ask the questions ourselves. And that's why this is happening. I think it was on purpose to get people to ask questions, real people, not legacy media as well, but not just legacy media. So I want to go over the DOJ report and point out a few things that I think they're actually accurate. I wasn't able to get them into my tab side here So I'm just going to point out a couple things that I highlighted from it. Okay. There was okay, that's the memo. Where'd my report go? I have the memo and the actual DOJ report. And there were a couple things in the report about Epstein that I wanted to point out. So, and this is more on whether or not Epstein actually did unalive himself. So we're going to just talk about that for a minute. Okay. In this report from 2023, this is official DOJ, the policy from the prison where he was held at required staff to observe all inmates at least twice an hour. Okay. Further, to eliminate safety hazards, the MCC New York requires the staff to search the common areas at least 5 cells daily and to search the entire unit every week. In the evaluations of Jeffrey Epstein, he denied having any thoughts or history of attempted unaliving. And his cellmate later on told officers that he tried to do that to himself. So there's this weird conundrum between what actually happened with Epstein and his cellmates and being left alone and all that. I'm not going to go through all this because we're already like going too late. But Epstein was removed from the unaliving watch on July 24th, but remained under psychological observation until the 30th. He told New York staff he thought his cellmate had tried to kill him, but later said he did not know what occurred and did not want to talk about it and how he had sustained his injuries. And then he later on asked if he could be housed with the same inmate. So this is weird. Like, why would he accuse the inmate of trying to get rid of him and then ask to be housed with him? But regardless, they gave him a new cellmate. And then that cellmate shortly after was taken out too. And so he was left alone in his cell for approximately 24 hours. And within that time frame-ish, he went and signed a new last will and testament. And then he, here it is. Additionally, on that date, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit unsealed approximately 2,000 pages of documents and civil litigation involving Ghislaine Maxwell. And then after that, he was allowed to have a phone call that he was not supposed to have. He called someone, and then right after that is when he supposedly took himself out. So my point to everyone is, if you really study the report, it actually does look like the person known as Epstein in this prison did get rid of himself after finding out that the incriminating evidence against him had been verified. So something is weird there. To me, it really does look like this person did take themselves out. Okay. But for a good reason, because they knew they weren't getting out of this. This was it. This was the end of the road. All right. So the bigger question is not necessarily, for me, it's not whether or not he got rid of himself. It's more about where the real power lies. And that real power, I believe, is going to be lying with somebody more like Maxwell. I think she is the actual holder of information here, because from everything that I have seen over the years, it looks like Maxwell is actually the handler for Epstein. And if there is any kind of list, if there's any sort of client list or evidence, she's the one who either has it or knows where it is. And Epstein was actually more of a pawn to her in that lineup. And it's been presented as the other way around because that's what she wanted it to have presented as. And she tried to get out of it, but it didn't work. And then we're going to talk about, do you have any thoughts or questions on all of that?
No, I mean, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, but in a different light. But no, not at the moment.
Okay. So I also wanted to go over here's the memo. This is what came out yesterday that has everybody so in a tizzy. And like I said, rightly so. There is the way that this memo is presented is very interesting. I'm going to just read these highlights to you guys. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list, which I've already said technically, I think that's accurate. There is no incriminating client list because that doesn't hold up in the court of law. There's no evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. No credible evidence because he didn't actually blackmail them. He just had the material to do so if he wanted to. There was no actual, like, he just had all the stuff as receipts to make sure that he could hold it over their heads, but he didn't really do it in any sort of open way that anybody can prove. That's the problem with this stuff, is like, you cannot prove these things. And so if you can't prove it, you're going to mess up your court proceedings. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. That term right there, uncharged third parties. They could not figure out how to get the evidence to stack up against the people who really actually need to be put behind bars. And that's part of this message. Sensitive information related to these victims is intertwined throughout the materials. Another reason why these things have not been released, because it is impossible to segregate all of this information about these people who are victims from the facts of what happened. You do not want to watch the videos that were used for the blackmail potential, right? Perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends to bring justice to victims. So the theories that they're referring to, I believe, in this statement is the theory that he did not kill himself and that he was, taken out by other means. But the reality is he was given every opportunity to take himself out. So it depends on how you look at it. In the jail cell, he was left alone, and then also he had plenty of linens available to him. And there's a lot of discrepancies as to exactly how it went down, the way he had all of the material available to him to do what he pleased. And then that supposedly happened, right? So I'm sorry about my brain. It's been really hard for me to wrap my brain around this and get this, my notes are all over the place, so just have to bear with me. Now here is the twist. Is this memo even real? That's what I'm seeing spreading around on especially X right now. The memo kind of is weird. Let's take a look at it. I don't know if you guys can see it. No, you can't. You can just see the Chrome extension right up here at the top. This memo has a weird PDF fill out form URL up here at the top. It has these two stamps of approval on it that could be, taken from anywhere. And it's just these words. There's no signature. There's no it just says U.S. Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation. No person has put their stamp of approval on this. There's not really much going on with this. There's no direct publicly searchable archive on the website. I looked at the DOJ website, could not find this anywhere. I looked at the FBI website, could not find this anywhere. There's not an official release of this. This memo came from Axios and then was spread around throughout the various different news agencies. And the only way you can find this memo is going to news articles from legacy media and clicking on the link that they may or may not have, because I've noticed some of them have started taking the link off of their article.
Oh, that's weird.
So I was glad that I snagged it when I saw it. But yeah, Axios doesn't have the link anymore. I'm pretty sure they did. But it's hard to remember because I can't prove that either. Because I wasn't thinking they were going to do that. So I didn't take a screenshot or anything. But pretty sure they had a link to it. And pretty sure last time I checked, now they don't.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's weird.
It is weird, right? Some people have pointed to Caroline Leavitt's press briefing on the 7th as confirmation of the memo. And she kind of did, but kind of didn't confirm it. One of the reporters said that the FBI and the DOJ have concluded that there is no list. And she said, yes, they have. But she mentioned memo once, but was it this memo? Was it a different memo? Does she have information somewhere else? Was she just going with it? I'm really not sure, because it wasn't clarified well enough to know whether or not this was a legitimate thing. So
it seems like if it wasn't, though, they would be able to quickly shut that down. So what are you thinking as far as questioning the legitimacy of the memo? Because you know what I mean? If it wasn't and it became this public, typically, then they would say, oh, well, that wasn't us, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a CYA kind of thing. or it can be a CYA kind of thing. Look that up if you don't know what that means. But I think actually it was an intentional leak to test the public's reaction. I think that it is partly legitimate. I think that this really is from probably the DOJ, but they
essentially they would be able to be like, that wasn't official, like if they needed to, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. So they could pull it back and be like, we didn't publish that. Where'd you get that from? If the reaction wasn't what they wanted, or they could, maybe the reaction is what they wanted, but they still don't want to take responsibility for it. They could just be like, yeah, no, we didn't. We did. Nobody said any such thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Man, that's interesting.
Weird, huh?
That is weird. I just have to wait and see what happens with the memo. See if they.
Yeah, well, and that's why I always
make any updates to it.
Say on this channel is like, try to hold off on any sort of extreme emotional reaction to anything because of things like this. We don't really know yet. This needs time. And doing something like getting the criminals behind bars takes a lot of time. They've been doing this for decades. It's not going to take just a snap of Trump's fingers to make it all go away. He's been working on it, of course, but there's a lot more work to be done. But I think that one of the biggest things that this memo was trying to do was to get people to question it. And clearly it worked, because even the liberal media outlets are covering it now. The liberal media outlets are saying, what about Epstein? Why is this weird now? And
because the people care. Because the people care. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, in my opinion, all these roads so far, they lead to Maxwell, who, let's not forget, is still alive and in prison and able, we can still ask her, we can still bring her back into court if things are set up the right way. And she needs to be protected, which is a crazy thing to say, because obviously we don't want people to it's a hard thing to obviously I don't want anybody to die, really, but she does need to be protected, because her protection means incriminating evidence against the other people who need to be behind bars, so that they don't continue perpetrating this crime. Right.
Yeah. I just looked her up on, Wikipedia just to know some more about her. And some of the interesting things I found was says she was referred to as the lady of the house by Epstein's staff and as his aggressive assistant. Epstein himself referred to her as his best friend. Vicky Ward said Epstein, observed that Maxwell seemed to organize much of Epstein's life.
Yeah.
So it's this idea of her being involved in everything that he did. And then we see that the weird thing is Epstein was convicted of soliciting a minor, served 13 months of an 18-month jail sentence back in 2008. And Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year sentence for, similar things. And so it's okay, they're both guilty, super, super guilty, right? She's still alive. Exactly. We could get the information out of her, we could get the information. She has all the information. She was his, she was in the house.
Or access to it. She knows where it is. She can bring it up somehow.
His best friend. She was his quote unquote personal assistant, and like you're saying, maybe even more behind things than he was, so it's I think
at least as much,
all roads lead to Maxwell, is what it seems like. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that's, I think that obviously, there's the uproar about this is a good one. I think people need to keep pushing, keep asking questions. I'm not saying don't do that. We absolutely, all the people who are upset on all the platforms, keep being upset, keep asking the questions, and keep pushing people to get the real answers to these, because we don't have all the answers, regardless of whether or not my perspective on it is a good one or even an accurate one or whatever. I don't have the answers. No one has all the answers, it seems like, and we need the answers. But at the same time, we have to be very careful, because it's almost like you got to be careful what you wish for, because some of the evidence for what has happened is so disturbing that I don't think the average person can handle it.
Yeah. And I don't want to honestly, I don't want to read all the reports. I don't want to know everything, there's certain things it's no, it's better if I don't know, but I do want to know that the people involved are behind bars, or that they are being prosecuted. I do want to know that it's being stopped,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of I have a lot more like underground theories on how this is all played out over the years, but that's probably not something that I'm gonna ever share on this channel. And I just want to encourage people to do their own research, but keep yourself in check because this can get real dark real quick.
Right.
Don't go there if you don't think you should go there. And the best thing you can do is just have the Holy Spirit, and He'll tell you when to stop. And
Right.
I've had that happen before, where I've been down a rabbit hole and I've had to pull out because I'm like, oh, okay, this is too much. I can't go there anymore. But I think that regardless of all of that, it's really important to point out that there has been an unprecedented amount of trafficking that's been stopped, criminals arrested, and rings busted, and all of that during the Trump administration, more so than ever before. And I got a couple of stats here real quick. Over 248 trafficking convictions claimed since the current administration began, approximately 8 to 10,000 arrests in 2017 to 2019, interestingly enough.
Wow.
This is from all of Trump's setup for like the border patrol and all that. By ICE, 5,387 confirmed by ICE. Rings busted, multiple large-scale child trafficking rings disrupted with no exact number, but recent claims suggest over 140 human traffickers taken down in 2025 operations. Specific cases like the Nixon and La Luz del Mundo indicate at least 2 major networks dismantled, and then hundreds of children rescued. And more investigations have been opened up.
Wow.
Over 1,600 investigations opened in 2019. Yeah. Okay. So those are just a few quick numbers of what has happened since this whole thing has blown open.
Right. And I think that's such a good point to make, is that because you see people like Epstein who, whether that was him or not in a jail cell, it's like, it's like, that's one person, that's one person. And it's like, bringing justice to one person is not necessarily going to fix the big looming issue. And it's like, that's what we really need to be focused on. And that's what I honestly believe, like just based on the numbers and the cases that they've, and the convictions that have happened since Trump's been in office. It's like, I honestly believe this administration is focusing on that.
Yes.
And they're working really, really hard, to take those people down. So I'm like, praise God, like that is just amazing. And that's what we need to see more of, and I think that is the problem. That's the big problem that I see with even the Border Patrol, reporting that the liberal media does, all that kind of stuff, the ICE. It's like my sympathies go out to people that are, have families outside of the States, have families in the States, and they are illegal. My sympathies and my compassion goes out to those people who are not breaking the law other than coming in illegally, but at the same time, it's like the fact that there are so many that have been arrested already that were involved in stuff like this, and even in other crimes and stuff. I'm like, the liberal media paints a narrative, but they're not willing to look at, okay, what's being done that's actually really, really, really necessary. This is so necessary to take these people out, to get them behind bars, or else it's going to keep happening, and it's like speak no evil, hear no evil, see no evil. And it's like enough of that. We've got to understand what's really going on, at least to an extent, so that we can do something about it as a nation, and so, yeah, I'm very grateful.
I think
what's been done.
Yeah, and it's because their angle is to point a finger at Trump, which unfortunately does work, because now we've got even people on the right side of things saying, like, I'm so disappointed in Trump. Why would he say there is no list? And that's why I wanted to point this out. Like, well, because I don't think there is a list, but you have to really look at this with a more logical, reasonable lens and consider that it's deeper than that. It's not so simple as, oh, just get the list and we're all good to go.
But there is evidence. Yeah. Like there is evidence for those who have broken the law, like that's, right.
And you probably don't want to see that evidence. Let the agencies or whoever, let the people taking care of this take care of it. It's a big case.
Right. We still want it taken care of, whether we get to see it or not, whether we get to see the evidence or not, we want it taken care of. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think some of it has been taken care of, probably behind closed doors, but I don't think we're ever going to know anything about that. I want to point out this comment real quick, because I just want to make a correction. I don't know, Lou, if you're referring to what I was talking about during Epstein's time in jail with the moving, but if I made a mistake in saying this, I did not mean it like this. With the cellmates that were with Epstein were removed. It's because I'm trying to be careful about what I say, but they were not taken out like that. They were like just not in that
moved
cell.
to another space. Yeah.
Moved to another space, another prison or whatever. As far as I know, they did not get offed in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to point that out real quick. And I was just kind of running through here real quick to see if anybody had any questions about this. It's really hard to really nail this stuff down because it's all so secretive and confusing, and it's on purpose. These people who commit these crimes made it convoluted on purpose because that's how they got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
So untangling decades worth of deception is no easy task, and hopefully we do get to the bottom of it, but it's going to be well. And unfortunately, I do think that there are going to be some perpetrators who walk free because of one legality or technicality or another. But ultimately, in the end, I believe that justice will be served. I believe that we just have time to wait and see exactly what that justice looks like. And as long as we keep pushing and we keep asking for that justice, I think that we will get it eventually. And I do believe that more and more people are waking up to this reality all the time. And let's get more people awake to this, but not afraid of this in the sense where like we're cowering in fear. We need answers. We need justice. And I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. And even if the people don't see it, God saw it, so yep. God's going to bring justice one way or another eventually.
It's true.
It's just going to happen. So no, yeah, that's very, very interesting stuff, Doug. Thanks for letting me jump on and join you for the last half.
Yeah, for sure. It was good. And there's a little bit of an angle with Maxwell that we're going to talk about tomorrow for the live stream at 9:30 still, right? We're doing morning.
Yep. 9:30 a.m. Central Time. We're going to be talking about International Waters Treaty and how that actually potentially relates to what's going on with the Epstein client list, all that. So real interesting stuff. Yeah. Y'all join us if you can. If not, no worries. We're going to have fun without you. So,
If so, we'll see you there.
See you there.